everybody. It's Renato Cruz Sagecco, AAF and I'm with my colleague Jackie Lacey. And we're here to give you another exciting episode of Spill the Petals podcast, where every episode we're going to address like an industry event, trend with our guest. And today we have a special guest, Brenna Quan, AIFD. She is
Hello.
Vancouver, British Columbia, and that's in Canada for those who may not be familiar with geography. And we're going to talk about a whole slew of topics. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hand it over to Jackie to just give the format of the podcast today, and we could begin our questioning of Brenna Quan.
Well, we're super excited to have Brenna with us today. I've known Brenna for several years through AIFD, and Renato just had the opportunity to meet her in Chicago at Symposium. So it's really exciting to be able to talk to our first podcast international guest, which is Brenna, as well as I just really admire and follow a lot of what Brenna does socially with techniques and within the floral industry. So I'm absolutely excited to get an opportunity to ask some questions and get to know her even better.
Well, quick promo for Brenna, and I know we want to give her a chance to chat, but you could check her latest video out. It's on the AIFD Foundation YouTube channel. It's the perspective that she provided. It's a wonderful video, so check that out. So without further ado, Brenna, how about if you fill in the gaps that we obviously have, who you are, what you've done, and
where you are,
and all that.
Sure, yeah, you guys have covered it. Thank you so much for having me. This is great. I've been AIFD since 2009, and we can get into that a little bit later. But I'm just based here, back here in Vancouver, British Columbia, where I was born and raised.
Okay.
And now I have a family here. So, but primarily right now, working as an educator, I've had my own shop and businesses, worked in wholesale, retail, done all of that kind of stuff, and been a competitor in competitions as well. So, I think my career has kind of progressed into those different things, and I'm just always learning. So, yeah.
Kind of one of those things that we all do that become educators and leaders in the industry is to, I don't want to call it stumble around. We purposely try to do things like you mentioned, wholesale as teaching and being in retail, having your own shop. Those are things that we all do so that we have a good basis for being able to share with other people.
Right.
Nothing unusual to see that you've been around in several different positions for some time in the industry.
Well, that's really interesting that, you and I have been around this industry for quite a long time, but really we met in person for the first time at AIFD Chicago that just happened this past.
Yes.
And nothing salacious, but we met in an elevator.
Yeah, exactly.
It was one of those things where, hey, I know we're just in an elevator, but let's chat more later.
Yeah.
Just getting together and spending quality time together. So
well, I've heard your name all over the place, Renato. It's like Renato this, Renato that. He's doing this and that. I'm like, okay, I've got to meet this Renato guy. So I just, in the elevator, I'm like, hey, I'm Brenna. And then
every moment. So, and this is where it was born, where we were doing a podcast to get your story.
So cool.
Speaking of which, Brenna, so back in 2009, you reported that that's when you became AIFD. Could you give us insight why you felt you needed to be certified?
Right. Yeah, totally. So I didn't know anything about AIFD very much prior to that. This was 2007. I was working and living as a florist in Salt Lake City, Utah. And there were some members that were brought in to help out with this big event. And so that's where I met Tom Bowling and a couple of others, Noel. And they introduced me and told me what AIFD was about. And it just so happened that a couple of weeks later was Palm Springs Symposium. And my boss at the time just called me, came over, said, pack your things. We're going to go to Palm Springs. I'm like, awesome. Okay. Yeah. So we went, and it was another friend of mine as well. We heard that we needed to volunteer. So we volunteered in the workroom, and we thought we were going to be designing and doing all these flowers and cool things. And we pretty much ended up schlepping buckets and moving, ice from here to there, taking direction from Bobby. And we're like, okay, that's what we're going to do. But we just had a ball. We met as many people as we could. We met Dove and Beth and, all the AIFD members who are so prominent and who have helped so many and mentor so many. And, I'm still in touch with them to this day. So anyway, jump to 2008. My boss again was really instrumental in sending me to Chicago to test. He said, I'm going to help you do this. I think you should do it. And
You had the
yeah,
support.
so yeah, exactly. I had the support. And so I had a friend who had also tested. So I had her, she was the only person I knew really to help me figure out how I'm going to pass this test. So after that, testing in Chicago, and I'm very grateful that I was able to score high enough to be inducted the following year in Kansas City in
Amazing.
2009. Yeah.
So, could you compare your experience prior to becoming that AIFD member to now you're full-fledged AIFD, well
Oh,
respected in the community?
really crazy to think
What's a
about. Yeah, I
contrast?
mean, the contrast, I had no idea there was this other world in floral artistry. I'd only known, I'd only known retail and recipes and, volume work, just cranking out things, production. And so this was just a whole entire world. And so I went into it really not knowing too many AIFD folk. At the time, there weren't very many in Utah. And so it just kind of flourished from there. 2009, so I was credited. I was actually 7 months pregnant when I went on stage to get pinned. And so that's what happened after that. Family happened.
So we're proud of
So
the main stage experience.
yes, exactly.
Awesome.
Yes, so I was still, 2009 was a big year because of being inducted. Also, I was running two businesses and had just had a kid. So I had a lot to keep me busy going for a little while. And then uh, from there, I just kind of thought, I think 5 years had passed, 4 years had passed, and I thought, all right, I need to get going and doing something more. I was fully immersed in retail
Mhm.
and wholesale at the time as well, and that was the time that I was itching for bigger and more things.
So that kind of takes you up to a super big year for you, 2016. And I just want to
Yeah.
read a few of the things that we were able to find. First place in the Pacific Northwest competition, second place overall in the Gateway to the America's Cup, featured main stage presenter at Symposium in Anaheim, California, first place in Neotropica Aloha Cup, and first place in the Florist Review Cup for fashion design. Was there not something else that you could have added to that year?
Hey, we
That
found
was
this
a pretty
all on the internet, so this
That's
all must
right.
be true.
Must be true.
Right. Yeah, that was definitely an eventful year.
Yeah.
Um, uh, so Anaheim Symposium, that was the very first time I was on stage with Suzanne Law and Paul Jarris, and we presented together. I scripted myself from the second I stepped on stage until I walked off stage because I was absolutely terrified. It was my very, very first ever speaking engagement in the industry on the
Oh,
symposium stage. Kind of crazy. I kind of aimed high at the beginning.
Jumping into the deep end of the
Um,
pool.
what's that?
jump into the deep end of the pool.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Into the shark pool. Yeah, and that was and the competition started. I mean, it was Hitomi Gilliam, who's a dear friend and an absolute mentor to me. I'm very lucky. It was 2012 that I moved back to Vancouver. And so I was able to connect with her, take some classes, and she started her Pacific Northwest competition. So I decided to do that. Lo and behold, I managed to win that competition. The prize was an entry into the gateway to the
Hey,
America's Cup. So I'm like, oh my gosh, what have I done? So, from there, it's just, I realized how, um, I want to say lucky, but also just very privileged I was to be in these positions and be able to do these things. And so I was kind of um, taking in what the universe was dishing out to me and riding with it and learning just so much. And that's where it just snowballed with meeting people, connecting with so many more AIFD members, and really realizing that, hey, I I can contribute. I can be a part of this community. And it just, it flourished from there.
well, I can say for one because I participated also in the Gateway to the America's Cup in 2018, and it takes a lot more than luck to
Yeah.
participate in that. So, kudos for all of those. And
uh,
what would you share with those that are listening or watching about jumping into the competitive arena in the floral industry?
well, I think it takes a leap of just, putting yourself out there, and it's always scary. Even now, it's scary. Every time I do competition, but it's also exhilarating. Not just the energy of it all and your fellow competitors, but there's camaraderie. There's so much learning. It's really pushing yourself, right? It's pushing yourself to think or to be outside your comfort zone. That's the really the ultimate way to learn, and exponentially too. You learn quickly. It's not just little baby steps. I mean, every time I do competition, I learn from it, whether it's what to do or what not to do. You can pick up something from every experience that you have. Even if you decide to attend a show and you're like, oh, that was okay. If that happens, it doesn't matter. You will always learn something from each experience. So I think everyone, designers, artists, we have to keep an open mind about it all when going into it, and not, you know, throw the ego out the door. It doesn't belong there.
Well, I
So,
think that's when we
mhm,
we learn a lot, not just about ourselves and our design
Yeah.
build, but then also about our craft and how to
Hmm.
manipulate things, because we are getting out of our comfort zone and out of our box of what we normally
Yeah.
would do. So
Exactly.
I encourage everyone to, you have to just go into it with, I'm going to learn a lot, and it's not
Yes.
so much about the winning. Winning is great,
Yes.
but it's
Uh-huh.
everything else that you get to take away from competing.
Yeah. A hundred
speaking about
percent.
your experience, Brenna, do you have anything to share with viewers on how to prepare for competitions, drawing from your experience?
How to prepare for competitions? I think I'm still learning, honestly. You I like to try to practice techniques, because it is very risky to try brand new techniques, because as you know, when you're taking workshops or classes, you don't get it right the first time. It's rare that that happens. It takes practice. It's all, count on something going wrong. And in competition, especially in live competitions where it's timed, you don't have time for those. And right, so it's good to have do what you know, kind of like in the PFTE as well. We kind of advise people, right? You sort of do what you know. If it's not necessarily time for experimentation, although competition itself, you do want to push yourself. But I think there's that line of, okay, push yourself to creative levels, but technique wise, you probably want to just refine and stick with what you know first, because you can practice and refine new techniques that you learn just by being inspired by what's around you during that competition and use it for next time.
That's
Well, I
great
think
advice.
with PFDE too, you're
Yeah.
preparing to do what you've been instructed by
Hmm.
AIFD by knowing the principles and elements and
Yeah.
knowing what the categories are, that sort of thing. Where with competition, it's who
Hmm.
does it best. So big
Hmm.
difference between
Right.
evaluation and competitive judging. So you
Yes.
want to make sure that you understand the venue, whoever
Hmm.
is producing the competition, those sort of things. But when it comes to
Right.
being prepared, you should be prepared to
Yeah.
compete on at whatever level that you want to achieve, and then that's always going
Yeah.
to keep.
Yeah. Exactly. You sparked something about that is do your homework as well, right? Know who's going to be around, what you're doing, what you're competing, what the categories are, what the competitions have done in the past. That always helps, I think. Any tidbits of information that can help you get familiarized with what to expect is a good thing.
Right. Well, I know you said that 2009 was a super big year because
Mhm.
of the baby and everything else that was going on. It's a big gap between 2009, 2016. So, what were
Yeah.
some of the other things that you were working on during that time?
Really, it was I was living in Salt Lake City, Utah, where I didn't have any family, so it was just and two businesses. So I was just kind of struggling to to keep my head above water. It was very overwhelming, exciting, but overwhelming at the same time. So I did have a retail business, and also exactly my son was born. And 2012 actually was a big move. We moved from Salt Lake City, Utah, back to Canada. And then I had my daughter here as well. So it was kind of, more personal family building. But then, when I moved to Vancouver in 2012, I connected with a bunch, Hitomi, Aniko, a whole bunch of AIFD folk. And that's when, social media too. That's kind of when I started really engaging there because being a stay at home mom, that was my connection to people and a way to put myself out there and put my work out there and see what came back.
I remember when we were getting to know each other, you shared with me something during the conversation that really surprised me about you. That you are a former theater performer, and you
Oh,
actually
yes.
were part of the Miss Saigon traveling company. So I just have to ask, and I'm not going to make generalizations about our industry, but I think I could honestly say there's a lot of drama that happens in our industry, right? And I figured,
No, I
I,
don't know
Like it
what you're
or not.
talking
I
about.
heard that. But if you were in that realm, do you think that experience helped you adapt so well to the floral community?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's one art form to another.
Huh?
And I realized that once I started actually learning what elements and principles were, because I found a job at a flower shop because I wanted to play with flowers and, had no idea what foundations were or anything like that. So once I learned that there were all of these things that were, the part of our industry, I could make the connections now from, line. There's line in dance. There's line in, elements and principles,
Mhm.
form, rhythm, repetition. All of that stuff started to really make sense to me, and now I understood why it made sense to me. So it took me a while to own that that's where I came from and that's where my evolution as an artist was from. I would see all these florists who came from horticulture, who came from architecture backgrounds, all these other things that, well, I don't have any of that. I don't have an art history. I'm not an art history major or anything like that. But that wasn't the point. I had to realize that this is where I came from, theater. And so now I do own that. And when I do demos or workshops or teaching, that's how I can relate from one to the other is that if I'm building a structure or building um, an armature of some sort, I'm basically building a stage. I'm building what's going
Right.
to showcase the flowers that are the stars, obviously, and they speak for themselves. But to be able to create something like that to enhance the experience or enhance the expression, that's something that I take from my theater background.
It's yeah, it's amazing.
I'm going to go off topic
Mhm.
just a little bit and surprise you
Yeah.
with a question that we
Uh-oh.
didn't prep you for. But I love following you on social because you do some incredible techniques and incorporate all of that into your design. I love the unexpected that you add to. But what inspires you when it comes to your design and what you want to share socially?
I am inspired by materials, first of all. Okay. You have to have the materials to begin that spark. What I also try to do is to, like they say, think outside the box. So what would I do first off? What's my first instinct to do? And then I kind of go through that process, whether it's physically or just in my mind. And then after that, that's when I think beyond. Okay, get that out of the way. Now, what's going to take it to the next level? I always try to. I've always, as a kid, even wanted to be unique, not necessarily fit in with the rest. And same with dance and choreography. I would try to think of what other people don't necessarily do. So, and it's, I guess, same with competition, right? You kind of see what's around you, and it's better to stand out and do something different than the rest. And so, I think that that's what pushes me to think about, um, I guess, beyond what you could do. Um, I just try to bring as much I guess what's the word? I don't know, uniqueness, right? To something, or try to bring something people haven't seen. And part of it though is what I think many have seen, many others have not seen. So it's funny to try to remember that as well. That whatever your spin is on something is going to be brand new to the next person. Maybe not this one, but that one. So
You have
I've
to have a
always
lot of
said,
confidence in yourself to really pull that off, because the confidence lies in that you feel that your talent is unique, right? And whatever you deliver will definitely be unique. And
yeah, well, it helps,
create.
people are gracious with their feedback too. And that's that's what kind of reminds us that, okay, it's working. I'm inspiring one person. Really, that's enough for me. If I do something and I get that kind of response, to me, that's rewarding in itself. If that one person gets it or that one person is inspired by something I did, it's super rewarding. So that
Well, I
keeps me
think
going too.
one of the things that's important that you mentioned is don't just, I tell my students, don't just get out of the box, but burn it. Stay out of the box
Mm,
because
yeah.
you're always looking for something different, something unusual.
Yes.
And we have to
Mhm.
also remember that we each see everything differently.
Mhm, mhm.
We
True.
see
Yeah.
every color different. We see every application a little different.
Hmm.
And that's the great thing about being in the industry that we are in.
Yeah.
We love to share, but then when
Yeah.
we share that with someone, we manipulate it, we um, use it in a different way, and then it becomes something that is new constantly. So it helps keep the industry fresh.
You had a great observation. When
Yeah.
we were at AIFD checking out all the PFDE designs,
Hmm.
these are all the same materials that
Right,
they got.
right.
But when you
Yeah.
walk around, you hardly saw any duplication or things that looked
I
similar.
love that. I
With
love, love that.
representation.
Oh, even to old people like me, look at things and I'm like, why didn't I think of that? Why, I've been doing this for 40 years. I should have thought of
Right.
it
Right.
20
I
years
hear
ago.
you.
But
Absolutely.
it gives us inspiration
Hmm, hmm.
to want to
Hmm.
continue doing what we do after 40 years.
Totally. Oh,
That
yeah. Yeah.
that's one of the things I love about the industry.
Yes.
One of the
Yes. Me
things
too.
that I just wanted to ask or talk about and give you the
Hmm.
opportunity to talk about is that you just stepped into the position as Northwest AIFD Regional Northwest President.
Hmm. Yes.
So, was this a goal that you set for yourself in moving up in the industry, becoming a leader? Because, being a leader in AIFD or in the industry is incredibly important, and we need
Hmm.
many more people to do it.
That's true. Yeah, I mean, I'll be completely honest with you. It was not even in my radar. Um, it was not on the radar. Because I just thought, well, I don't know anything. What could I possibly contribute? Um, but I was approached, I can't remember what year now, but I was approached to run for the board, run as a director. And I called Louisa Lamb, who she's in our area as well, and said, "What do you think? I mean, I couldn't possibly contribute anything. I don't know anything." She's like, "Yo, you don't have to. You learn. That's why you join, and then you can contribute with your voice." And that kind of opened my eyes there. And so I've been from since then, moving up in the process. And I laugh with Louisa now. I'm like, yeah, I'm president now. Remember when? She's like, oh, yes, I remember the phone call. And so honestly, that just goes to show that um, it's it's a learning process, and I don't want to say anyone can do it, but anyone really can if you are willing to put in the time and really are passionate about something and want to be with your community. And that's what it is. That's why I love going to the symposiums, and just reconnect with everybody, and always making more and more connections and meeting people for the first time in person. Social media is such a way to connect with people, so much so that you think you've already met these people in person and
Right.
realize, wait a minute, we haven't actually, hugged each other or shaken each other's hands. So that's what's really great about that. And I'm just really, I feel very honored that I can serve and be a part of growing and just creating, I guess, creating action for everybody. And yeah, I definitely take that seriously. It's great to be able to give back finally. Hmm.
Well, like, speaking of which, so you're serving in this volunteer role with the Northwest Regional Chapter of AIFD.
Hmm.
Do you have any other plans for you to grow in this industry going forward?
I think it just continues to be what it always has been. Is that always um, don't close the doors on anything, right? If the universe is speaking to you, if it's saying, "Hey," steering you in a certain direction, just keep an open mind about it. And like I said before, get rid of the ego. Always be willing to take in what's being thrown at you, and be willing to try new things. Like I said, it's scary. It can be scary at times with new endeavors, but I don't know, that's also an exciting thing as well.
Well, we always like to end our conversations with asking each guest the same question. And
Mm.
that is, what's the single most important thing that you would want to share with others about the floral industry?
I think it's always to keep exploring, because if you stay stagnant and just doing the same thing over and over again, it just stunts everything right there, and it just stops. With being able to share and learn and grow and connect, it just keeps going and going, and it's really, it's endless from there. So endless possibilities.
That's a great answer and a great way to say just keep growing.
Yeah, true.
Well,
Yep.
Brenna, thank you so much for spending time with us today on the Spill the Petals podcast.
Oh,
It was
thank you.
great making your acquaintance. I feel like we're lifelong friends now, even though we just spent an hour
It was meant
together.
to be.
It
Yes.
was it was meant to be. So appreciate
Mhm.
your time and your insight. In case you're listening to this on audio, we do have a video version of this on the Floriology YouTube channel. So you can get it at youtube.com/@Floriology. And we also post this on our Facebook channel. So check out the video version there. Any parting words,
Yeah,
Jackie?
just like we always like to share, there's no use crying over spilled petals. We'll see you next time.
Bye.